Just imagine you're driving at night, completely lost, and the only road you take leads you straight into a town that doesn't exist on any map. That happened to me. And I swear to you, I don't think I was supposed to find that place. It started like this. I was hours into a long drive, chasing a shortcut my GPS promised would save me time. Instead, I ended up stranded on a back road surrounded by nothing but dark woods. No cell service. No gas stations. No landmarks. Just endless trees pressing in on both sides, like the road itself was funneling me somewhere. That's when I spotted it, a dirt path splitting off from the asphalt. Narrow, crooked, swallowed by shadow. It didn't look like a road anyone should take, but my gut whispered it would cut me through to the highway. Against all reason, I turned in. Almost immediately, it felt wrong. The branches hung low, scraping against my car like fingers. The smell of the forest was sharp, damp, and metallic, like wet earth mixed with iron. The deeper I went, the quieter it became. No crickets, no birds, no rustling in the brush. Just the crunch of my tires and the steady beat of my own pulse. And then, through my headlights, I saw it. A weathered wooden sign, leaning on one post, the paint nearly stripped by time. But the words were still clear enough. Welcome to Graybrooke. I frowned. I had never heard of Graybrooke. I've always been good with places, towns, directions, but this name meant nothing to me. Relief, however, pushed me forward. If there was a town, there had to be gas, maybe food, maybe a clearer way out of this mess. The path smoothed out, and soon, lights appeared ahead. At first faint, glowing between the trees, then stronger as the woods gave way to streets lined with warm yellow bulbs. Graybrooke looked like it had been frozen in time. Old brick storefronts. A barbershop with a red and white pole turning lazily in the window. Wooden porches, painted signs, glowing lamps. The air even carried the faint smell of baked bread, like a small-town bakery was still open somewhere nearby. But as I rolled slowly down the main street, one thing became horribly clear. The lights were on. The doors to shops were open. Yet the town was empty. Completely empty. No people walking the sidewalks. No cars parked on the street. No sound except the quiet purr of my own engine. Then my phone buzzed. For the first time in hours, a single bar of signal appeared. I snatched it up, my heart jumping with relief. But when I opened my Maps app, something was wrong. The screen showed my blue dot, pulsing faintly. But beneath it? Nothing. Just blank space. There was no Graybrooke. Not on the map. Not anywhere. That was the exact moment I realized I had driven into a place I was never meant to find. My phone slipped a little in my hand as I stared at that blank screen. No streets, no labels, no town. Just my pulsing blue dot hovering over nothing. I looked back up through the windshield, half expecting the town to disappear in that instant, as though it had only existed on some trick of my headlights. But Graybrooke was still there, silent and glowing under its rows of warm street lamps. I should have turned around. Any normal person would have thrown the car into reverse and backed straight into the woods. But instead, I shifted into drive and kept rolling forward. Because something inside me wanted to know. The bakery was the first shop I passed. A neat little brick building with a gold-painted sign that read Sweet Haven. The door stood open just a crack, light spilling out into the night. Through the window, I could see loaves of bread lined neatly on shelves, a tray of pastries on the counter, even a cash register sitting ready. But no baker. No customers. Not even the faint sound of a fan or an oven. Just stillness. A few doors down, I saw a barber's pole still spinning slowly, red and white stripes sliding endlessly downward. Inside the shop, a chair sat in front of a mirror, tools laid out in perfect order. Scissors. A comb. A straight razor. All gleaming like someone had just cleaned them. But again, no one there. I rolled farther, my eyes darting from one storefront to another. A hardware store. A diner with booths and napkin holders set neatly on every table. Even a little movie theater with posters for films I didn't recognize plastered across its windows. Everything in perfect order. Everything waiting. But no life. My unease swelled until I finally pulled over in the center of town. The engine idled, its low rumble the only sound for miles. I sat there, gripping the wheel, staring at the glowing diner across the street. The lights inside flickered slightly, not enough to go out, just enough to remind me they were burning electricity. Which meant power was running. Which meant someone somewhere was keeping this place alive. I killed the engine. The sudden silence pressed in like a weight. That's when I heard it. A faint creak. It came from my right, just beyond the car. My pulse kicked as I turned my head. A porch swing. That's what it was. A white wooden swing hanging from the porch of a two-story house, swaying gently back and forth. Except there was no wind. Not even a whisper of a breeze. I watched it for several seconds, my throat dry. The swing kept moving. Not slowing down, not stopping, just rocking steadily like an invisible weight pressed into it. I don't know why, but I opened the door. Stepping out into the cool night air, I expected to hear crickets, owls, anything. But the silence remained, heavy and unnatural. My footsteps echoed faintly on the pavement as I crossed the street toward the diner, trying to convince myself I'd find someone inside. When I reached the glass door, my hand hesitated on the handle. The diner glowed warm and welcoming, red booths lined up perfectly, chrome shining under fluorescent lights. A pot of coffee sat on the counter. Steam curled from its spout. That detail made my stomach twist. Steam. As if someone had just brewed it. I pushed the door open, and a bell above it jingled cheerfully. The sound was too loud in the silence. I froze in the doorway, scanning the diner. Empty. No cook behind the counter, no waitress carrying plates, no voices chatting over pie and coffee. Just the smell, greasy bacon, fried eggs, sweet syrup, all still hanging in the air, sharp and fresh like breakfast had been cooked minutes ago. I stepped inside, the door swinging shut behind me. The bell jangled once more before silence swallowed it whole. The floor tiles squeaked faintly under my shoes. I walked past the booths, my eyes darting to every corner. A plate sat on the counter, half a stack of pancakes cut through with a fork. Syrup pooled on the plate, still glossy. Someone had been here. Recently. My throat felt tight as I leaned closer to the plate. The fork rested against the pancakes. Something about it looked wrong, but I couldn't place it at first. Then I realized the metal still glistened with condensation. Like it had only just been held in someone's hand. That's when I heard footsteps. Not mine. I spun, my heart slamming against my ribs. The sound had come from the far end of the diner, past the kitchen door. Slow, deliberate steps, echoing softly across the linoleum. Hello. My voice cracked as it left my throat. The footsteps stopped. I stood frozen, my hands trembling at my sides, waiting. The silence stretched until I thought I might scream just to break it. Then, faintly, the swing outside creaked again. I didn't wait to see who or what was in the kitchen. I bolted for the door, the bell clattering wildly as I shoved it open and stumbled back into the empty street. My car sat waiting, quiet, the only real thing I could cling to in that moment. But as I reached for the handle, I froze. Someone was sitting in the back seat. My breath caught in my throat. Through the glass, I could see the outline of a figure in the back seat. Perfectly still. Head tilted slightly, like they'd been waiting for me to notice. The street lamps threw just enough light through the windows for me to make out pale skin, dark hair hanging loose, and the faint curve of a smile. I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over my own feet. My first instinct was to run until the town was behind me, even if it meant crashing through the woods on foot. But then the figure leaned forward, and something stopped me cold. The back door creaked open. Slowly, as though pulled by an unseen hand, it swung wide until it hung in the air. No sound came from inside the car. No movement. Just the door yawning open like an invitation. I couldn't breathe. My whole body screamed at me to turn and bolt, but my legs wouldn't obey. Instead, I stood there, locked in place, staring at the open door. Then, in the faintest whisper, I heard it. Come closer. The voice wasn't loud. It wasn't even threatening. It was soft, almost kind, like someone coaxing a child from hiding. But hearing it made every hair on my body stand on end. I forced myself to move, staggering a few steps back toward the diner, toward the only light and shelter I could cling to. My car, the one lifeline I had out of here, was no longer safe. The voice came again, this time with a faint edge of laughter. You're already here. Why leave? I turned and ran. Not toward the woods, not toward my car, but deeper into the town. My feet pounded against the pavement as the shops and storefronts blurred past me. I didn't know where I was going, only that I needed distance between myself and that thing in my back seat. Graybrooke stretched on far longer than it should have. Street after street, corner after corner, each one a mirror of the last old shops, glowing windows, empty porches. It felt less like I was moving through a real place and more like I was circling the same scene over and over again. Finally, I stopped, bent double, gasping for air. My lungs burned, my chest heaving, sweat slick on my skin despite the cool night air. That's when I noticed the church. It stood at the end of the street, taller than any other building in town. A white steeple reached into the night sky, its cross gleaming faintly under the lamps. Unlike the other places, its windows were dark, its door shut tight. Drawn by something I couldn't name, I stumbled toward it. The heavy wooden doors groaned as I pushed them open. Inside, the air was colder, heavy with the smell of dust and old wood. The faint outline of pews stretched out before me, and at the far end, an altar waited beneath a towering stained glass window. For the first time since entering Graybrooke, I felt alone in the truest sense, no whispers, no footsteps, no figures lurking in the corners of my vision. Just silence. I sank into a pew, my hands trembling against the worn wood. My mind spun in circles. What was this place? Why wasn't it on the map? And what the hell had been waiting in my car? I buried my face in my hands, trying to steady myself. But when I looked up, my stomach dropped. The stained glass window at the front of the church had changed. Before, I could have sworn it was the usual scene, an angel, maybe, or some saint. But now the colors had shifted, forming a figure sitting in a car's back seat. The glass shimmered faintly in the dim light, the figure's head tilted, that same faint smile stretching across its face. I shot to my feet, my heart hammering. A sound broke the silence, a long, slow creak, echoing through the church. The pew behind me moved. I spun, and for just an instant, I saw someone sitting there. Same pale skin. Same loose hair. Same smile. Then the seat was empty. I staggered back, hitting the edge of the altar. My breath came in short, ragged bursts as I scanned the shadows, certain I wasn't alone. My eyes darted from corner to corner, expecting movement. But the church was still. That's when the bell tower rang. One sharp, deafening toll that reverberated through the wood and stone. The sound rattled my bones, shook the air itself, and left me clamping my hands over my ears. Then, silence again. But when I looked back at the stained glass, the figure was gone. And behind me, just a few feet away, I heard the voice whisper again. You're part of Graybrooke now. I spun around so fast I nearly fell, my back slamming against the altar. My eyes darted through the shadows of the church, searching, but there was no one. No figure. No pale skin, no smile. Just empty pews stretching back into the dark. But the whisper still hung in the air, curling through the silence like smoke. You're part of Graybrooke now. I stumbled forward, my legs unsteady, and shoved through the heavy doors back into the street. The night air hit me like a shock. But it didn't bring relief, only the realization that something had changed. Graybrooke wasn't silent anymore. Faint noises drifted on the wind. Laughter, soft and distant. The scrape of chairs. The clink of glasses. A baby's cry, muffled but unmistakable. I turned slowly, scanning the empty streets. The shops were still lit, still neat, still empty. But the sounds came from everywhere at once, as though the whole town was alive, just invisible. My pulse pounded in my ears as I moved down the street, following the faintest echo of voices. They grew louder near the diner, though the windows still showed nothing but those perfectly arranged booths and that plate of pancakes waiting for an eater who never returned. I kept walking, every instinct screaming to run, but my body too locked in its own tension to obey. Finally, I reached the movie theater. Its poster frames glowed faintly, each one displaying a film I didn't recognize. Titles like The Ones Who Stayed and Graybrooke forever stared back at me in faded lettering. And then the marquee above flickered to life. In sharp, glowing letters, it read, "Tonight's feature, your arrival." My chest constricted. My breath caught in my throat. And before I could move, the glass doors of the theater swung open. Light poured out, golden and warm, and for just a moment I heard it clearly, dozens of voices chattering, laughing, clapping, as if a crowd was already seated inside. Then, silence again. I should have turned away. I should have run until my lungs burst. But something deeper pulled me forward, as if the town itself wanted me to enter. Inside, the air smelled of butter and dust, the heavy scent of a theater long closed yet somehow still alive. Rows of plush red seats stretched out before me, all empty. The voices were gone, but the echo of them lingered in the air, like the aftertaste of sound. The projector flickered on. I turned toward the screen just as the first frames appeared. My blood ran cold. It was me. There I was, driving down that dirt path into the woods, my headlights cutting through the trees. The footage wasn't from my phone, wasn't from any dashcam. The angle was wrong, like someone had been standing in the trees, filming me as I drove past. I staggered back a step. The film cut suddenly, now showing me entering Graybrooke. My car rolling down the street. My face as I looked into the diner. Every moment, every hesitation, every ounce of fear I thought was mine alone captured. And then it cut again. Now I was inside the church. Sitting in the pew. My hands covering my face. But this time, it didn't stop where reality had. The footage kept going. I watched myself lift my head, my eyes vacant, my expression slack. Slowly, I rose to my feet and walked back out into the street. My movements were jerky, unnatural, like a puppet on invisible strings. On the screen, the version of me turned down an alley. The camera followed, shaking slightly as though whoever, or whatever, was holding it was close behind. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. The screen version of me stopped in the alley, facing a brick wall. Slowly, my head turned, until I was staring directly into the camera. Directly at myself. Then the screen went black. The projector whirred a moment longer before sputtering to silence. I stood frozen in the glow of the empty screen, my skin crawling. I wasn't alone. I knew it. I could feel eyes on me, pressing from every direction, though the theater remained empty. I turned to leave, my legs shaking under me, but just before I reached the doors, a voice whispered again. This time it came from the projection booth high above. "Stay for the ending." My body locked. My eyes flicked up toward the booth window. For an instant, I saw movement, a pale face leaning out of the shadows, watching me. I didn't wait. I shoved through the doors and burst back into the night, gasping for air like I'd been drowning. But the town was no longer empty. Shapes stood along the sidewalks now. Dozens of them. Pale figures with dark, hollow eyes, all turned toward me. Their heads tilted at unnatural angles. Some smiled faintly. Others just stared. And then, as one, they whispered, "Graybrooke forever." They stood in perfect stillness. Dozens of them. Maybe more. Their pale faces lit by the glow of the street lamps, eyes black and hollow, heads tilted like broken dolls. I stumbled back a step, the breath tearing from my chest. The street that had been empty seconds before was now crowded, every sidewalk filled with those silent figures. "Stay calm," I whispered to myself. "Don't run. Don't." But then, as one, they moved. Not forward, not closer. They simply shifted. Their necks cracked sharply as their heads straightened in unison. The sound echoed down the street like the snapping of dry branches. And then, in perfect harmony, they all spoke. "Graybrooke forever." The words rolled over me like a wave, each voice whispering yet carrying with the weight of thunder. My knees nearly buckled. I turned and bolted, sprinting down the street with every ounce of strength left in my body. The figures didn't chase. Not at first. But as I tore past them, I caught the faintest shuffle of feet. Then more. Then the pounding of dozens of footsteps falling into rhythm behind me. They were following. The town blurred in my vision as I ran. Street after street, corner after corner, all of it looking the same, looping endlessly like I was trapped inside a maze. My lungs burned, my legs screamed, but I couldn't stop. Finally, I saw it, the dirt road. The same one I had entered from, stretching back into the woods. Relief surged through me. I pushed harder, the pounding of the footsteps swelling behind me. But when I reached the road, I froze. It was gone. Where the path should have been was only more buildings, more shops, more glowing lamps stretching into the distance. The way out had vanished. No, I gasped, clutching at my hair. No, no, no. The footsteps closed in. I spun, pressing myself against a wall as the pale figures emerged from the shadows, lining the street in every direction. Their faces were blank now, their mouths closed, but their eyes burned with something I couldn't understand. Hunger. Or maybe recognition. Then one of them stepped forward. It was a woman. Her dress looked decades out of date, a floral print faded with age. Her head tilted slightly again as her lips curled into a smile. "You made it," she whispered. My throat went dry. What do you want from me?" She took another step, her bare feet silent on the pavement. "You came here. That means you belong here. Graybrooke chooses." "I don't belong here," I shouted, my voice breaking. More of them stepped forward, their smiles widening. "Graybrooke forever," they whispered in perfect unison, the sound rattling in my skull. I darted sideways, shoving past the figures, forcing my way through the crowd. Cold skin brushed against mine, too soft, too clammy, sending shivers down my spine. But somehow I broke free, stumbling into another street. I didn't care where I was going anymore. I just needed somewhere to hide. That's when I saw the house. It looked like every other in town, white porch, shuttered windows, a swing still creaking gently in the breeze that didn't exist. But its front door was wide open, and a golden light spilled out like a beacon. I had no choice. I ran inside. The air in the house was warmer than the streets, filled with the faint smell of candles and dust. I slammed the door behind me, my chest heaving, and pressed my back against it. Silence. For a moment, it was like the figures outside no longer existed. Like I had stepped into a pocket of safety. But then I heard it. Footsteps upstairs. Slow. Heavy. Moving from one side of the house to the other. I swallowed hard, my heart rattling against my ribs. The staircase loomed just ahead, its wooden steps worn smooth with age. A faint glow pulsed from the second floor, flickering like candlelight. I should have left. I should have run back into the street, into the nightmare I already knew. But instead, I found myself climbing. One step, then another. Each creak of the wood seemed to echo louder than the last. When I reached the landing, I froze. At the end of the hallway stood a mirror. Tall, old, its frame carved with twisting vines and strange symbols I didn't recognize. Candlelight shimmered around it, though no candles burned nearby. And in the reflection, it wasn't me. The person staring back wore my face, my clothes, but their skin was pale. Their hair hung loose and damp. And their eyes, black, hollow, endless, stared into mine with a faint, knowing smile. I staggered back, but the reflection stepped forward. Closer. Closer. Until its hand pressed against the inside of the glass. And the surface rippled like water. The mirror rippled as the other me pressed its hand against the glass. My breath caught in my throat. I stumbled back, but the hallway behind me seemed to shrink, the walls closing in, the air heavy with the smell of old wood and smoke. The reflection's lips curved into that same faint smile. Then it spoke. "You don't leave Graybrooke. You become Graybrooke." The sound didn't come from the mirror, it came from the hallway itself, from the walls, from the floorboards beneath my feet. The voice was everywhere at once. I spun, searching for an escape, but every door I tried was locked. My heartbeat thrashed in my ears as I turned back to the mirror. The reflection was gone, but the glass still moved. Ripples spread across its surface, as if something was pushing through from the other side. A pale hand broke through first, dripping with dark liquid that looked too thick to be water. Then another. My body screamed to run, but my legs were rooted in place. The figure pushed harder, its head emerging from the glass, strands of wet hair hanging in front of its hollow eyes. It was me. Not just a reflection. Not just a trick of light. It was me, my body, my face, but wrong. Drained. Empty. I staggered backward, whispering, "No, no, this isn't real. this isn't. The other me crawled fully out of the mirror, its smile widening. Behind it, the surface of the glass shimmered with faint shapes, dozens of pale faces, hollow-eyed figures pressing against the inside, watching, waiting. The air grew colder. The floorboards groaned under invisible weight. And then, from outside, the voices rose again. Graybrooke forever. Graybrooke forever. The chant rattled the windows, shook the house to its frame. I clamped my hands over my ears, but it didn't stop. It wasn't sound anymore, it was inside me, drilling through my skull. The other me stepped closer, tilting its head in that same broken angle as the townsfolk. Its lips moved, but the voice was mine. Tired of running, aren't you? I couldn't take it anymore. I shoved past it, sprinting down the stairs 2 at a time. My shoulder slammed into the front door, bursting it open. And I froze. The street outside was gone. In its place was forest. Dark, endless trees stretching as far as I could see. My car sat on the dirt road where I'd left it, headlights still glowing weakly. For a moment, pure relief tore through me. The woods. The road. My car. I sprinted for it, the sound of footsteps thundering behind me. I didn't look back. I couldn't. I yanked the door open, threw myself inside, and jammed the key into the ignition. The engine roared to life. My hands trembled on the wheel as I slammed it into reverse, the car fishtailing on the dirt before I spun it around and hit the gas. The trees swallowed me again, their branches clawing at the windows as I tore down the path. My chest heaved with ragged breaths, my eyes wide on the road ahead. I didn't dare glance in the rearview mirror. After what felt like hours, the trees finally thinned. Asphalt appeared beneath my tires. The dirt gave way to a real road again. I was out. I pulled over, shaking, gasping, my hands white-knuckled on the wheel. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat. Signal bars full this time. I opened the map. The road was there. The woods. Even the highway. But no Graybrooke. Not even a trace. I told myself not to look. I told myself to just drive, to never think of it again. But something in me couldn't resist. I glanced into the rearview mirror. For a split second, just long enough to see it, my reflection wasn't mine. It was smiling.